problems and struggle. And it's easy to want the benefits of something without wanting the costs. And so you need to ask yourself, like, what are the costs that I'm okay with? Because that's actually a much better indication of A, what you're going to be successful at, and B, what actually makes you different from other people. You know, what actually distinguishes you as a person and kind of inform your identity.
You do a bit of investigation into the sacrificial motif in your second book. I believe it's mostly in the context of false religions. But you make a case, it's just something I'd like to point out because it's part of where it seems to me that your thinking is going, is that the case you're making is that you can tell what you want by observing what you're willing to sacrifice for it.
Yes.
And sacrifice, modern people have a very shallow notion of what sacrifice constitutes. Sacrifice is, in fact, how you please the gods. And archaic people acted that out because they were struggling to bring to consciousness the knowledge that it was necessary to give up something that you valued in the present to gain something that you valued even more in the future. And maybe they acted that out by offering up a choice cut of meat to God, and that seems pretty barbaric and archaic to us, but that was the birth of a tremendous idea. And the tremendous idea was the observation that if you gave up something you valued, you could bargain with the future. And that's like the most amazing discovery that human beings ever made. It's like the discovery of the utility of work. A little pain now will pay off in the future. It's equivalent to the discovery of the future. It's no trivial thing. So then the question becomes, what is it worth? What is it that's worth sacrificing for? And you found in your own life that commitment was one of those things.
Absolutely. I've become an ardent zealot for marriage. It's funny because my career actually started in men's dating advice, and I still get emails all the time from young people who, they say, what's the point of marriage? Like, what's the point of settling down? What's the point of being with one person? And I feel like I've become a very unlikely just preacher for the benefits of commitment.
The more people that you take to bed, the more you're with one person. And that person is yourself. Because all those relationships are exactly the same. The fact that they happen to be different bodies is trivial compared to the depth of realization that you obtain by getting to know one person really well. There's no comparison. And it's very sad in some sense that young people have a question such as, what's the value of marriage? That should be, if our education system, if our socialization systems were operating properly, that would be self-evident. It's part of what makes your life worthwhile to go all in on something. Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you on a more personal level, you and I are similar in that we've both written books about value, and they're both, I suppose, in the self-help genre with some detours into philosophy and psychology. I found this very difficult, the consequences of this very difficult in some sense. It saddened me terribly because so many people have talked to me about how mixed up their lives were and how the words of encouragement that I've offered have helped them put their lives together. And that's a very positive thing. And on the one hand, because I can be pleased that my work has been helpful, but it's also very painful, on the other hand, to get a real glimpse into how much of a longing there is out there for guidance of any sort. And how much of a lack there is of that. And that's been very hard on me to see that over and over and over and over. And I don't know if you've experienced anything like that, delving into the same realm.
Yeah, it can be heartbreaking at times. I very consciously kind of manage my exposure to it.
How do you do that?
I schedule reader email essentially, and it's I have an assistant who kind of screens everything, gets rid of the trolls and the hate mail and the spam and stuff like that. So I have a folder that it's pretty that she moves certain emails into, and it's when I open that folder, I know that I'm going to get pretty personal and heavy stuff. It's not all negative. Sometimes it's great life-changing stuff, and so there's a mix there.
Yeah, well, it's generally positive. The stories that
most
I'm
of the time,
often stopped on the street, and so that's it's not as easy a encounter to control. And I mean, I'm not complaining about it, because people who stop me on the street are almost invariably polite beyond belief, and I've had very, very few negative interactions. But that doesn't mean it isn't heartbreaking, because people reveal the cataclysmic conditions of their life very rapidly in a very intimate way. And
you need a burqa. I'd solve that problem real fast.
Can you imagine the headlines? Jordan Peterson wears a burqa.
Yeah, well, I've tried a hat and sunglasses from time to time, but that's not as effective a solution.
No, it can be heartbreaking, and it's, well, you know, sometimes I don't know what to say sometimes, and a lot of times I simply respond with, you know, I'm listening. I don't know what to do in this situation, you know, and my audience is, because, you know,
Listening
so much of my audience
to do.
It is, but it's, you know, my audience is very international, and so I'll get emails from like a girl in rural India who says, my parents are making me marry a 50-year-old man who I've never met before. I don't know what to do. Should I run away? And I'm like, you know, I struggle with that. Like, how do you even respond to that? And so there's a lot, and it can go to pretty dark places. And so, yeah, I just kind of, I set aside a certain time of my week. I'm definitely not as recognizable as you. I don't get stopped on the street. I don't do many live events, so I don't get it as much in person. But in terms of like the emails and stuff, I've just kind of learned to kind of, you know, all right, Sunday afternoon is for these few hours, like that's where I'm gonna